Thank you. Ms. Sealand. We'll be starting with the video. This video is the 14 leaders who are represented in the ocean who will be speaking. Just give a background on why we're here today. Thank you.
The ocean gives us life. It feeds us, entertains us, connects us, inspires us, and powers our success.
I grew up in a beachside suburb of Sydney, and it was very often the case that I'd head down to the beach after school with my mates. It is so much part of our way of life.
From an early age, you learn how to swim, you learn how to fish. That's a very important part of our culture and tradition.
Indigenous peoples have lived in harmony with our natural world and our oceans for millennia, and we need to draw from your expertise on how to better support and cherish and steward our oceans.
We are sailors, we are fishermen, we are industrialists, we are dependent on the oceans.
But today, the ocean's health is off track. At a time when we are already looking to recover from the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, we understand how vulnerable we are to health and other shocks.
It's important that we consider ocean as a partner. Life on Earth, as we know it, depends on the health of the ocean.
Research shows that a healthier ocean is a smart investment that will deliver social, health and economic and environmental benefits.
The health of our earth and the health of our people are linked. They're totally intertwined.
Nuestra visión es encontrar un balance entre la conservación y el uso sustentable de los recursos marinos.
I believe we can choose a triple win. A win for people, a win for nature and our economy.
Where effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand.
The Ocean Panel, composed of 14 serving world leaders, has put forward a new ocean action agenda.
Nous invitons à assurer une gestion durable de 100% des zones océaniques se trouvant à l'intérieur des limites de nos territoires.
Listening to science, listening to research, listening to best practices that we have seen work for many other countries.
Sustainable ocean action should be a cornerstone of national and global policy.
Pengelolaan laut yang berkelanjutan akan mendukung pencapaian SDGs.
We are looking for reason to believe that in 2021 and beyond, we can not only fix what COVID did to the world, but also fix the problems we already had on our plate.
Climate change, pollution, ecosystem collapse, economic instability, unhealthy diets, poverty, and unsustainable practices across all sectors.
The answer is a healthy ocean with sustainability at its core.
Oceans may separate us physically, but they can also bring humanity together for a healthy, prosperous future.
El esfuerzo por una economía oceánica sostenible y sustentable tiene que ser multisectorial y multilateral.
We call on more world leaders and other partners to join us in turning the 100% goal into reality and treat the oceans as the solutions for the future.
The ocean gives us so much, let's give it 100%.
Thank you. Excellencies, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives from our international, regional and civil society organizations, friends of Fiji and friends of the ocean. I also make a special acknowledgement of Ambassador Peter Thompson, who's live and watching us and will be speaking after this. And those who are watching on the live stream and on Zoom at this time. Just for information, if you have time to text later on, it's live streamed on Fiji government Facebook site. My name is Voreqe, and I've been acting as the Sherpa for Fiji on the Ocean Panel, which is why I'm your moderator today. It's been 2.5 years since the Prime Minister of Norway convened with the co-chair, Palau, 14 representatives of countries with large ocean zones to reset the agenda for ocean action targeting the 2020 UN Ocean Conference and to deliver the 2030 SDG 14. These 14 countries, Norway, Palau, Fiji, Australia, Japan, Canada, Chile, Ghana, Indonesia, Jamaica, Kenya, Mexico, Namibia, and Portugal represent 40% of the world's coastline, 30% of the world's EEZs, 20% of the world's shipping fleets, and 20% of the world's fisheries. Today, Fiji will be the first of 14 countries to host the domestic launch of the new action agenda for the ocean. Here in Fiji and in the Pacific, we understand that the ocean is a life source. The ocean sustains us with oxygen, with food, with medicine and culture. It stabilizes the climate and absorbs dangerous carbon emissions. At a time when we're already looking to recover from the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, we understand how vulnerable we are to financial shocks and the health crisis. It leads to greater prosperity and the source of livelihoods in fishing, tourism, and transportation, if we can get this right. Our people's well-being and our prosperity as a nation is deeply intertwined with the health of the ocean. We're going to have two sections today. We'll be starting with the opening by the Honourable Prime Minister and then a response from Ambassador Peter Thompson. And then we'll shift quickly into a panel that is led by our Minister of Economy and Minister responsible for oceans, and our special guests today. So I'm not going to hold this any further. Let's start with our opening address from the Prime Minister, the Honourable Bainimarama, who co-chaired the first UN Ocean Conference in 2017, introduced the Ocean Pathway as a priority into Fiji's COP23 presidency, which has led to this week's Ocean Dialogue that is being held at the UNFCCC at this time, and has championed the call for oceans both globally and here in the region. Thank you, Prime Minister.
My fellow members of the Ocean Panel, Honorable Ministers and Assistant Ministers, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Permanent Secretaries, panelists, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, Bulavinaka, and a very good morning to you all. I'd like to thank all of those tuning in from around the world for this launch, as well as all those here in person this morning. This gathering is only possible due to Fiji's status as a COVID-contained country. It's been some 230 days since our country has been totally free of any local cases of COVID-19, a feat that can be traced directly back to the hard work, the discipline, and the foresight of our healthcare heroes and members of our disciplined forces. In Fiji, we followed the science on how to contain this pandemic, and because of this, we have so far been largely spared from its deadly toll. Indeed, we're meeting this morning in the midst of a crisis that the world has never seen. The loss of life is almost surreal, with the scale of these losses almost beyond human comprehension. Entire industries are being crippled, jobs are being lost, families are suffering, and perhaps most frighteningly, the world is seemingly becoming numb to this crisis, precisely when it needs to be addressed most. In many developed nations, many people are more focused on Christmas shopping than containing the growing catastrophe at their doorsteps. In the fog of this pandemic, you may not have guessed it, but I'm actually not talking about COVID-19, but about the existential crisis facing our oceans and the life they contain. Many of the same great consequences that have come to light during the pandemic are consequences of a changed climate, and specifically to an ocean under siege. Loss of life, destruction of livelihoods, and economic devastation are shared scars of our health and oceans crisis. But in many ways, and as hard as it is to see this now, the global oceanic emergency we face is even worse than COVID-19. Because while pandemics of this scale or larger have come and gone, usually about once every century, climate change and the degradation of the ocean is causing damage that cannot be undone. Communities are lost to the seas, species being wiped out forever, coral reefs facing a mass extinction. Our oceans simply cannot be cured with a shot in the arm. The seas that we pass to our children and grandchildren are at risk of damage beyond repair. That is why I joined 13 of my fellow leaders from all corners of the globe to launch the Ocean Panel's new Ocean Action Agenda, starting right here in Suva. Our collective leadership is born from a shared commitment to the 100% sustainable management of our ocean, a commitment that I hope will grow after gaining momentum from this panel and the many others taking place around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, in this room and joining us virtually are some of the countries, the regions, and even the world's most well-versed experts in the health of our ocean and what it will take to save them. And as the Ocean Panel kicks off a series of these discussions around the globe, you have the privilege of starting things off on the right foot. And Fiji, through each of you, has a unique perspective to lend to the Global Ocean Panel. Around the world, from a Pacific Island Forum to COP, to the UN General Assembly, and on any other stage we can seize, we have echoed a Pacific plea for the fate of our planet. The climate emergency is an oceanic emergency. Widespread recognition of the ocean climate nexus, I believe, is the most powerful aim of our Ocean Action Agenda. My friends in Fiji, we see firsthand every day how ocean ecosystems are buckling under the strain of a warming world. Pollution, overfishing, and other reckless abuse from humankind. In the face of these new and worsening threats, Fiji's national ocean policy will serve as our compass towards sustainable oceans management, both here at home through action and abroad through an aggressive advocacy campaign. So as the world looks to rebuild COVID-19's rubble, we must not turn a blind eye to our climate, but instead focus on healing humanity and our oceans at the same time. By building back better and building back bluer, we are giving the ocean a fighting chance. And in doing so, it can fight for the health of our planet for generations to come. Thank you, and God bless.
I'll ask if you can take a seat in front. Thank you. And then if we can move the settings just to clear the screen before Ambassador Thompson addresses us today. I'm just going to invite the Special Envoy for the Ocean, of the United Nations Secretary General, but a true son of Fiji, and he's been a member of the Sherpa group that's been representing the leaders through the past 2.5 years, developing the documents that you all have. Ambassador Peter Thompson, welcome, and good to have you live from London.
Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Donald. Yes, I can see Nicky give me the thumbs up there, so I'll take it you can hear me. And yes, I'm going Prime Minister, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Nimburganaka, namaste, and greetings to all present. Before I give my remarks to you, can I just say how extraordinary it is for me, after being trapped here in lockdown London since March, to see a gathering of people that I'm looking at here on the screen, of you all sitting next to each other in Zoom, shaking hands and so on. I mean, it's a tribute to the way that the Fiji government has managed the borders and managed this crisis. I have not seen this for 9 months. If I go out to the shops at night, the streets are totally empty, and if you do see another human being there wearing a mask, you don't say hello to each other, you walk on by. It's as the Prime Minister said, the tragedy, the scale of the tragedy, you know, you probably cannot quite grasp it in Fiji. Looking in a room like that, you are there. Of course, you are suffering with the tourism industry and so on. But anyway, congratulations to the government of Fiji in containing the situation. So moving to the subject of my remarks, this week's launch of the Ocean Panel's transformation report is truly a seminal moment in international efforts to conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. The results of 2 years of research by over 200 experts in 50 countries are presented in the report's 74 recommendations for priority action. They represent a major global stride towards the attainment of SDG 14, the UN's universally agreed goal for ocean action. No one should underestimate the importance of such action. No healthy planet without a healthy ocean. And for some time now, the ocean's health has been in steady decline. The transformations set out the action that is required to restore the ocean's health for people, planet, and prosperity. It lays down a cornerstone for governments and organizations to cement the ocean's place at the center of global policy making, whether that be in relation to food security and biodiversity loss, or renewable energy and climate change. The production of the transformations speaks to the unwavering commitment of the 14 leaders constituting the Ocean Panel. 14 serving heads of state and government who came together of their own accord to get this task done for the benefit of all. It was no easy task, for the divides that have prevented past efforts from succeeding are many. But not only did the 14 leaders and their countries reach political consensus on all these ocean action issues, they did so in the midst of a global pandemic. On behalf of us all and the ocean itself, I thank them. As a Fijian, I reflect with great pride on Prime Minister Bainimarama's devotion to the Ocean Panel's high calling, and express deep gratitude, not just to him, but also the tireless team of Fijian officials who supported him and the Ocean Panel's work throughout. The Prime Minister and his team have demonstrated once again that when it comes to climate action and ocean action, Fiji is ready to carry the flag and fight the good fight on behalf of people and the planet. I also wish to put on record that the commitment of the 14 leaders of the Ocean Panel to sustainably manage by 2025 100% of their national waters under sustainable ocean plans provides a game-changing example to others. If the leaders of all the world's coastal and island states choose to follow that example, we will exponentially increase our chances of reversing the decline of the ocean's health. So I commend to you all the findings of the Ocean Panel, in particular the priority actions visualized by the 14 leaders in the transformations. These findings demonstrate the mighty power of a sustainable ocean-based economy to deliver up to 1/5 of the annual greenhouse gas emission reductions needed by 2050 to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Between now and COP26 in Glasgow, may every nation consider these findings closely, thereby determine how they might double down on their ocean-based climate action contributions under the Paris Agreement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador. And it's the one year we don't see you 3 or 4 times at least somewhere on the planet. But good to see you right on the screen. But thank you again for the inspiration. We're going to move into the next, and you're welcome to stay with us, or you can exit, since I know it's late night in London. But we'll just clear this, and as we invite the panel to come forward and take your seats, we're going to be playing another video, just a very short video this time. And we're going to move into the implementation of Fiji's ocean commitments and what we're doing already and what we need to do to make a sustainable ocean economy a reality for Fiji. So while the video is playing, I invite the panelists to come forward and take a seat. Thank you. Ask the panelists to take your seats. Well, welcome to our panelists. And it's from what we've been hearing so far, what's clear, it's time to shift from thinking of the ocean as a victim to seeing it as an essential part of solving global challenges. We now know that we don't have to choose between ocean protection and production. We can have both. And then research shows that a healthy ocean is a smart investment that will deliver social, health, economic, and environmental benefits. Instead of business as usual, we can choose a triple win, which we've heard come up in the speeches before this. People, nature, and the economy, where effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. It's smart policy and it's good politics. And so I'm just going to open the panel just with that statement, and then I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister of Fisheries to just start us off today and talk about just where we are with fisheries and the vision over the next decade for 2030. And then after that, our second speaker will be the head of Fiji's locally managed marine areas network, Margaret Voreqe. And Margaret, for those who know the oceans, is a champion of not just the ocean, but the communities who live by the ocean. And then we'll leave it to our Attorney General, Minister of Economy, the Minister of Transport, and the Minister responsible for oceans to complete and summarize what this means from his perspective, where we're going with a sustainable ocean economy. So I'll invite the Minister of Fisheries to start. You're welcome to use the podium or to stay in your seats, just where you're comfortable.
Thank you, Kami. Honorable Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would talk on this morning on sustainable seafood, beyond tuna, transforming coastal fisheries, and ocean farming. Sustainable seafood is seafood that is caught or farmed with minimal environment and social impacts. It means that when we fish, we must be mindful to leave enough fish in the ocean, respecting habitats and ensuring people who depend on fishing can maintain their livelihoods. This is becoming a challenge for most fishing nations and entities. In the context of global fisheries, the tuna industries have always provided Pacific Island nations. While some countries like Fiji are not heavily dependent on tuna, it is important to acknowledge the high dependency of other nations. Looking back at how most of our small Pacific Island economies have evolved, it is imperative that we recognize the contribution of how the tuna sector has paved the pathway for most. A reason behind this is the development of international and regional framework that ensures the sustainability of fish stocks. This is only possible through the collective commitment of Fiji and our region neighbors to implement these measures at national level. I would now like to talk a little bit on transforming coastal fisheries. In recognition of this, we can say that to some extent, our coastal fisheries need our attention. The impact of climate change, land-based pollution, unsustainable harvest, and increase in economic demand call for immediate actions. To help transform coastal fisheries, there are key elements that need to be put in place. Firstly, legal framework. We all need relevant and fit-for-purpose legislation to support activities geared towards the development of a sustainable coastal seafood platform. These legislative provisions will support and guide the need for science, enforcement, management measure, and economic progress in a way that recognizes sustainable development goals. Second is management guideline or policy framework. Recognizing the different stakeholders that are involved in coastal fisheries, management guidelines play a key role in achieving a holistic approach. Holistic approach includes but not limited to community inclusiveness and recognizing the need for available science and the use of traditional knowledge, all of which are important for sustainable fisheries management. Third is having enough workforce and finance to aid implementation. Work and financial support have always played an important role in sustainable fisheries management. If we are to ensure that fish that we consume and those that we send off to the markets are sustainable, that we need to invest in our workforce and identify appropriate funding mechanism to support this work. The vastness of the coastline, coupled with different activities weaved into our fishing sector, constantly requires additional workforce and funding support. We are fortunate that through internal and external partners, Fiji is able to address some of these needs, and we are determined to continue to work building on this. I would like to talk briefly on ocean farming. In the area of ocean farming, I'm happy to share with you developments that have involved in this. Ocean farming definitely builds toward a blue continent. Ocean farm produce incredibly nutritious food that benefit fish and other marine organisms. In Fiji, this is done through various scales, inclusive of different marine species. At our communities, ocean farming involves the culture of seaweed, edible oysters, pearl oysters, mabe pearls, and clams. While this is done at different level, the result of this development is worth recognizing. Through ocean farming, communities are presented with alternative source in income that is sustainable and is easily managed. This leads to a reduction in wild-caught species, allowing for vulnerable stocks to recover. Additionally, most of these designated areas become safe nursing and foraging grounds for marine species, and since ocean farms have a natural setup, species interaction of stocks to recover. In having said that, ocean farming or sustainable aquaculture practices is the way to go if we are to successfully protect depleting ocean resources. What this calls for is building our knowledge around sustainable ocean farming while being aided by innovation and technology. Fiji is interested in introducing ocean cage farming for high-value species. We acknowledge that cage farming is practiced worldwide with technology readily available. It does not require any further research. The main challenge is in the investment in these projects. Initial site assessment has indicated that with Fiji's pristine warm waters is suitable for farming high-value species. We need to attract investment on this to reduce high dependency on wild catch, which is unsustainable. To achieve this, we need a collective approach that would secure partners and funding to help realize this important aspiration. I'm optimistic that ocean farming is something that we should all work towards for. I thank you.
Thank you. And that's a big vision on ocean farming and essential for today. I'm going to invite, because the question then comes on the other side, what about protection and conservation? And then what about the people who are most affected, and what does this mean? And we couldn't get a more able speaker to speak on this one than Magi. So thank you.
The Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Frank Bainimarama, our UN Oceans Envoy Ambassador, Mr. Peter Thompson, the Honorable Minister for Fisheries, Mr. Semi Korolavisau, and the Honorable Minister for Economy responsible for oceans, Mr. Ayasaid Kayum, to our Excellencies, dignitaries, Permanent Secretary, and members of the regional and national conservation NGOs that are also present here this morning. To Taholo, ladies and gentlemen, Nyandra Vinaka, and a very good morning to you all. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Fiji government for this vision on building a sustainable ocean economy for Fiji, and congratulate the teams on having Fiji be the first this morning out of the 14 countries to launch this event. Thank you as well to the organizers for having FLAMA be part of the Sustainable Ocean Economy panel this morning. As Taholo had mentioned, my name is Margaret Vakalalambure, and I hail from a very small village called Narambale in the district of Aturova in the province of Thakunrove on the second largest island here in Fiji. My mother's blood runs through me proudly from the furthest island in the Lau group, Onoilau. My totemic fish species is the Voreqe. My totemic tree, Nasea. My totemic animal is the owl, and my family comes from a line of priests, or the Mbete. This is my story and the story of my family and generations before, as well as generations to come. And this is our link to the ocean and the environment around us. I mention this because this is resonance across not only Fiji, but across the region as well, and our link to the ocean. I'm here today representing a network of communities, organizations, and practitioners who in the last 20-year journey have taken up the responsibility to collectively co-manage across Fiji 135 out of 410 traditional Lingolingolis or LMMAs, which has resulted in more than 400 marine protected areas that now covers more than 70% of our Fiji inshore waters. As already mentioned by our respective speakers and the Honorable Minister this morning, Fiji is one of the leaders in the field of implementing community management to achieve sustainable use and management of coastal fisheries in the region as well as globally. The Fiji Locally Managed Marine Area Network is a consortium of 3 government ministries, of which the Ministry of Etoke Affairs holds the chairmanship for, non-government and community partners as well, that was established in 2001, and collectively we have been able to coordinate this effort. The LMMA process empowers communities to take local actions using the traditional and marrying it with the scientific knowledge to develop and implement our Yaumbula management plans. The commitment for the network is very much linked to the 100% approach that we have heard here as well this morning. From 2015 to the year 2025, it is to empower our communities to scale up their current efforts to an effectively managed and governed network of LMMAs in all Fijian communities, covering 100% of Fiji's customary marine areas, which is equivalent to 35,000 square kilometers, by the year 2025. There are a few great stories of these co-management efforts that I'd like to share with you all this morning. The Great Sea Reef, locally known as the Kaulevu or Bainimarama, is the Southern Hemisphere's 3rd longest continuous barrier reef system, 260 kilometers in length, from the northernmost tip of the island of Unolevu to the outermost barrier reefs and the near shore fringing reefs of the Asawa Islands and Coral Coast. The Kaulevu is home to coral reef biodiversity and is source of 70% of Fiji's fish catch. Turanga Tui Madhuatas Ngolingoli covers an inshore of 1,344 square kilometers and provides important fishing grounds for 12 districts with a population of around 70,000 people. It has recently also been recognized as well and designated as a Ramsar site. The second one is on the Vatuira Conservation Park, which encompasses Vatuira Island and over 10 square kilometers of reefs, lagoons, terraces, and pinnacles off the northern coast of Vitilevu. The conservation park was established to protect the remarkable biodiversity of both its marine and terrestrial ecosystems and to preserve its cultural history. The spillover effect as well from this high fish population within the park has also benefited the traditional ground of Ngolingoli na Korutumbu. Nearly 80% of Vatuira Conservation Park is a no-take zone, including all of Vatuira Island. Vatuira Island is traditionally owned by Ngilongilo clan, while the surrounding waters fall within the Ngolingoli of Vakovata na Korutumbu. The island is highly culturally important and has been monitored and managed for invasive species since 2007 by the Ngilongilo clan with the support of BirdLife International. Villages in the region are dependent on the environment, relying on fish and sea cucumbers for income and sustenance. Ngolingoli Vakovata na Korutumbu is involved in the management of the park and benefits from the spillover effect that this park has had on its fisheries. My third one is on the Lau Seascape Initiative, which is an initiative to protect the ecosystems of Fiji's Lau Islands. This was designed in 2016 by Conservation International with the support of 30 Lau Island chiefs. The initiative aims to ensure sustainable management through a ridge to reef to ocean approach that encompasses all of the region's ecosystems. The Seascape, in partnership with government through the Ministry of Etoke Affairs and local partners and agencies, has merged and fostered local stewardship and supported to build capacity to support this effective co-management. These are just 3 of the big conservation initiatives and success stories that Fiji should be proud of and that has been supported by the government of Fiji and gained recognition for its efforts of co-management through the region and globally as well. But in the last 20 years, we have noticed as a network that as much as we have done all of this work in empowering our communities to set out their management plans and implement it, there is still a big gap. And the big gap that we have found is in the financing of our Ngolingolis. We have experienced with our communities a boom and a bust cycle in the management of their resources. The long-term vision has always been for our communities to have the ability to actually manage and use sustainably their own resources without depending too much on government and our NGO community. There have been various studies as well that have been conducted on different sustainable finance models and costings. As of recently of 2019 through to 2020, through the Pacific Ocean Finance Program, there was a study that WWF, World Wildlife Fund for Nature, was involved in to to review and relook at 3 mechanisms that could be replicable and applicable here in Fiji and the region as well. These are still under review, but one of the many models I am referring to, Mechanism 3, is on integrated community resource management, but it is also ensuring that the right one will work. And the major purpose of these funds is to raise financing for either an island, a province, to cover the cost of sustainable marine management and land ecosystem management as well. In progressing this forward, 2 provinces in Fiji will start to pilot these sustainable financing models come 2021. Our primary goal will be to look after the sustainability of our fisheries while ensuring the integrity of the ecosystems and the health of the oceans on which our fisheries are dependent on. The average national fish consumption in Fiji is estimated to be around 21 kilos compared to the global average of 19 kilos, with a predicted increasing trend in line with population increases. This factor alone strongly demonstrates the need to ensure that sustainability is at the heart of what we are trying to do in the future, with food security and protein security for all Fijians. On behalf of the communities and organizations that have been working within this ocean space, our many community champions, many who have passed on, leaving behind a legacy for us to continue, I take this time again to thank the 14 member countries, with our Honorable Prime Minister taking the lead, who have binded together to ensure a sustainable ocean economy for all our nations. Thank you again for this opportunity, and congratulations again, Fiji.
Thank you, Maggie. And just some things people might know. The first 30% commitment came from Fiji. And now we've also signed, the Prime Minister signed the 30 by 2030 commitment on protection and management. And that's part and parcel of a 100% management approach. And so Fiji has stepped up on many of these issues. The challenge continues to be the partnerships that can make this happen. Thank you again, Maggie. We'll just come to our final speaker here. There's no need for further introduction. Everyone knows the Attorney General, but also holding the Minister responsible for oceans.
The Honourable Prime Minister of Fiji, the Honourable Ministers, Assistant Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our Ambassador, of course, Peter Thompson, Permanent Secretaries, members of the Civil Service, directors of various departments, and of course including our NGOs. A very good morning and a bula vinaka to all of you. Thank you to the World Resources Institute for organizing this platform and for your support towards the global and local protection of our oceans. Here in Fiji, surrounded on all sides of the Pacific Ocean, few need a lesson on the importance of our blue economy. The ocean and the life it contains sustain every Fijian, as we've heard. We fish the waters, we traverse the seas, and we've built a tourism sector that showcases our oceanic beauty to the world. Throughout the course of this morning, we've heard, right from our Honourable Prime Minister, some of the astounding figures that speak to the vital importance of the blue economy, affirming what Fijians have known and respected for centuries. 40% of the world's population lives within 150 kilometers of the coast. To put into perspective, Viti Levu is only about 140 kilometers across at its widest point. So we know that figure includes every Fijian. That oceanic intimacy means we rely on a great deal on the $1.5 trillion ocean economy. It also means that we have front row seat to the worst impacts of oceanic degradation. We don't want to restate just how devastating humanity's recklessness and abuse has been for the past number of years and indeed decades for oceanic ecosystems. We have heard those painful details throughout the course of this morning and indeed through the video. Without a doubt, it is upon us as champions for ocean action to ensure the world understands what those impacts will cost us. But as we've seen with the campaign for climate action, the doom and gloom narrative alone is sadly not enough to inspire the global actions we need. As the saying goes, it's not a problem unless there is a solution. Luckily, we know a bluer future is indeed a better one for our people, for their jobs, for their businesses, and for our economies. And that is the real potential of this report. Our ocean is not too big to fail, nor is it too big to fix. And the new ocean narrative we're helping write today has the potential to dramatically enhance humanity's well-being through harmony with ocean ecosystems. When you hear of the potential for the ocean to produce 6 times as much food, as we've heard from the Minister and various other initiatives, and 40 times as much renewable energy as it does today, you of course gain the attention of any serious minister, in particular any minister who's concerned about money, anywhere in the world. In Fiji, those returns aren't theoretical. We're already realizing the benefits of our investments in sustainable oceans management. One among many great examples is at the Nandrulolo research station in Tailevu, where $300,000 in assistance from the Japanese government towards tilapia farming is expected to reap an additional $1 million worth of food production. We also put in the conservation philosophy into practice, as over 400 Fijian communities are enlisted in our Fiji locally managed marine area network, as we've heard, whereby the traditional practice of tambu is employed to protect species from exploitation. When we scale up these sorts of investments and initiatives, the dividends grow even faster, and we hope, we want to have a lot more deeper relationships with the various NGOs, and we'll come to that a bit later. Investing in ocean economies can yield up to 5 times the initial investment. The World Bank reports that Pacific Island countries stand to gain US $250 million per year, provided the right legislative and governance measures are in place to ensure sustainable management. As a large ocean state, that makes Fiji a land of big blue opportunity. To tap that potential, Fiji is close to the finalization of our first national ocean policy, which our Honorable Prime Minister has dubbed as our compass towards the 100% sustainable management of our ocean resources, with 30% of Fijian ocean allocated as marine protected areas. The policy maps out our efforts to adapt to ocean food production, to a changing climate, to ensure food security, improve nutrition, human health and well-being, create sustainable economic growth and jobs, and prevent the widening of current inequities. It aims to increase transparency in ocean governance and ensure the sustainability and efficiency of current food production and supply chains to seize opportunities to sustainably increase fisheries productivity and aquaculture production. In this respect, as mentioned by Flemmer too, and we are talking to, for example, governments like the British government in respect of developing blue bonds, as we've seen in countries like Seychelles, where they have launched their blue bonds, where the funds actually have been used directly to work with local communities ensuring sustainable fishing, good fishing practices, providing the right type of transportation for fishing purposes, and indeed ensuring that when you do actually have, for example, tampu practices in place, that those communities actually have a sustainable form of living, an alternative sustainable form of living, and indeed using their own backyard as the harvesting grounds. The policy, of course, will carry on overriding focus on creating synergies within government to access the wide variety of knowledge and experiences throughout the government machinery. The ocean holds opportunities, known and unknown, to deliver medicines, animal feed, fuel, new materials, and carbon storage solutions. We stand a much better chance at sparking the innovation needed to realize those opportunities by putting our heads together through a whole-of-government approach. That's why it's really good to see a lot of the permanent secretaries and directors here. The same applies to government collaboration. We're counting on the experiences of the rest of the world, including the 13 other members of the Ocean Panel, to inform our own efforts, and we pledge to transparently share our successes and challenges as we go ahead. Fiji also plans to lead by example in acting on our recognition of the ocean climate nexus, which is critically important. We fought hard at the Blue COP in Madrid to ingrain the Ocean Pathway Partnership within the processes of the UNFCCC, because we know that the climate emergency is an oceans emergency, and we must take both crises with equal urgency. Well-managed ocean economies can help achieve the net zero future that ensures their sustainability, all while providing jobs, supporting food security, sustaining biological diversity, and enhancing resilience. By the numbers, ocean-based climate actions can deliver up to 1/5 of the annual greenhouse gas emissions reductions needed by 2050 to limit warming to the 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature goal of the Paris Agreement. Fiji is spearheading the decarbonization of our shipping sector through our Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership alongside the Marshall Islands. This is a major step for the Pacific, as shipping represents the most important bridge connecting our islands to the region and indeed to the wider world. This partnership, in line with the Lodala Declaration, is a country-driven approach, through which each party develops its own program to achieve the collective aim of net zero emissions in shipping in the region by 2050. By pooling our efforts, we are working to develop financing package to fund a 10-year program across all member countries to make our domestic fleets carbon neutral. We're seeing promising interest already from development partners. We're optimistic the Pacific will sit at the cutting edge of decarbonization in the maritime sector. We call on our development partners, some of them who are here today, to not only bring the best technology in low-emission vessels, but to build capacity in constructing these vessels in country to revive and grow our domestic shipbuilding industries, create jobs, and set ourselves on the path to self-sufficiency. Times and technology, ladies and gentlemen, of course have changed a great deal since the drawers were in everyday use. But we believe that legacy of carbon-neutral shipping and shipbuilding indeed can live again. With the world economy beset by the COVID-19 pandemic, the need for sustainable, resilient economic growth across the Pacific has been laid bare. With government revenues gutted by the collapse of the tourism sector, officiates have lost a collective $7.4 billion in GDP. That's a monumental sum. We see the potential for blue recovery not by plundering the ocean, but by investing in it. And even with our borders shut down, tourism particularly holds great promise for the future. Tourism is set to become the single largest ocean-based industry by 2030. When managed sustainably, ocean-based tourism can actually restore and protect the ocean while delivering jobs and prosperity to island and coastal communities. We don't want to inundate single ecosystems with thousands or tens of thousands of tourists whose sheer volume risks destroying that very environment they come to see. But you can allow them to enjoy the beauty and bounty of protected areas and fisheries in a sustainable fashion that generates revenues that can be indeed reinvested into that very ecosystem. By curbing pollution, managing wastewater, preventing overfishing and exploitation, we help preserve the oceanic and reef systems that have made our region one of the most spectacular destinations in the world. But we can't end our ambition at the majesty of our reefs. Out to the high seas and down to the ocean floor are some of the last undiscovered reaches of the planet. We don't know much about them, but we do know they are fragile, susceptible to even the smallest of pressures. That is why Fiji has placed a moratorium, as announced by the Honourable Prime Minister, on a deep-sea mining from 2020 to 2030, applying a precautionary approach, only undertaking research and investigation. Creating an inclusive and sustainable ocean economy is an opportunity we simply cannot afford to lose. We hope that the launch of the transformation document, called Transformations for a Sustainable Ocean Economy, will indeed become the platform through which governments, industries, stakeholders, NGOs and experts will be able to collaborate in developing and implementing appropriate and effective solutions to grow investment in the sustainable management ocean economy. Fiji will be right there alongside all of you, including all those who are joined us virtually, working to bring all 1.3 million square kilometers of our ocean under sustainable management to benefit our people and to play our part in this global effort to protect our one connected ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, before I finish off, I'd like to please ask you to acknowledge the lot of work that's been going on behind the scenes, with our Prime Minister giving his full support to this. Tahalo, we have Kaushal and the team in the Climate Change Division, the various other ministries, including the Ministry of Fisheries and the Ministry of Transport, etc. They've been working very hard, and indeed some of the heads of the missions who have been working with us also behind the scenes in developing some of the policies. Please put your hands together for them. I think it's wonderful work that they've been doing. I'd like to thank all of you for your presence here today, including the Honourable Prime Ministers, and we look forward to your continued support. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.